Hello, this is Emily Bauer, your Ohio Educator Solutions Consultant. I am going to be talking about our Edmentum assessment program that is typically used by our Ohio high schools for the purpose of end-of-course retake intervention. Now, we understand that students are really trying to move forward in their coursework. They've moved on to obtain credits for graduation, but some of them still need to retake the end of course. And so how can we provide instruction that's meaningful to the student without giving them an abundance of all the various reporting categories all at once? Well, we do that with Edmentum assessments. We have the ability to personalize that instruction based off of where the standards gap is for that student. And so we understand that retakes are just around the corner at the beginning of December. And so today I'd like to just show you what Edmentum assessments will provide your students in regards to identifying gaps and providing a prescription of instruction. And so I'm going to just start off by sharing my screen here. As you can see, this is our Edmentum assessment program. On this page, this is our home page. This is where you're going to get some detailed information about where your students are at, if they have any incomplete assignments, if they haven't finished a test and the due date is slowly approaching, if we have any inactivity, and we want to ensure that the program is being used with fidelity so that the students are getting the intervention that they need. Here we also have time on task, not only for the student, but as for the instructor. We want to ensure that your instructors are monitoring the student's progress through the program and ensuring any support necessary when students do hit any roadblocks. I want to start off with the assessment catalog. Here is where you will go to access the various licenses and tests that you have available. Test packs are on grade level test. We have AccuSess and we have test pack. AccuSess is the adaptive diagnostic test if we're trying to identify the floor and ceiling for a student's curricular skills. It is criterion referenced, not norm referenced. And so we are really trying to, close any grade level gaps that students have. Test packs are on grade level. They are aligned to the standards of any particular high stakes test as well as learning standards by grade level. Here we have test packs for ACT. We understand that all juniors are required to take the ACT and as an option to be remedial free for graduation. We do have a wide variety. Our edition 3 is the newest ACT. Not only is it aligned to the reporting categories of the ACT, but also to the standards as well. Now, we've set up the ACT to be chunked into the sections of how the ACT is formatted. Here we also provide you with up to 3 tests, so at any point you can do some retesting to identify growth or any potential spiraling. However, the goal today is really to show you our Ohio end-of-course test packs. These are the test packs that are currently used by several Ohio high schools for the purpose of retakes. Now, students will go in, take the test, we identify where those standards gaps are, and provide a prescription based off of that information. Now, the first thing that you're going to notice when you open up the Ohio end-of-course test packs is that you see Common Core. One thing to note is that our Common Core Algebra 1, Geometry, English 9 and 10 were already created before the release of the before the release of the end of course test. And so what our curricular team is, we pulled the standards blueprints from the ODE and we did an alignment. And so we do have alignment data as well as crosswalks. So if you, at any point you want to take a look at the alignment to our test, to the standards, that is available to you. Now, we understand that the Ohio Physical Science is not an end-of-course test any longer. It initially was. We do have a few schools that still want to access the test, so we continue to make it available. Physical Science, American Government, American History, and Biology were built from the ground up. And so our curriculum team did build those specific to Ohio. And so I just want to start off, I'm going to open up a biology end of course test. The first thing you're going to notice is, once again, we have up to 4 tests for you to use to do any type of retesting to measure growth. But I also want to show you is that we do have a variety of action items. From this page, you can assign a learner a test, you can view the test, and you can also create a custom version of the test. The custom version of the test will allow your instructors to select any specific reporting category. So if you want to chunk the test based off a reporting category and only focus on those particular reporting categories by a weekly basis, you do have that as an option. But for right now, I'd like to just open up the test so we can take a look at the format of the items. The first thing to note is that we are on the teacher side, so we do provide you with an answer key, as well as what the question would look unanswered. We also provide you a summary. The summary outlines the various categories of the test, the percentages weighted in those categories. And then if you scroll down, we do a prescription summary. So here are the questions correlated to the activity, points possible, and minimum proficiency. So I'm just going to scroll down. We have a summary for each of these tests, so if you ever want to go and open up to view a test, that summary option will be in the test for you. Right now, I'm just going to start off by clicking through some of these questions. One thing I want you to be aware of is that you will start to see a lot of different technology enhanced items. So right now, we're in a couple of these multiple choice. Here is a great example of a drag and drop. We do have some open response questions. These are optional. We understand that the end of course has now decided to remove these types of questions. And so you can choose to leave them in the test and score them, or you can choose to opt or exclude them from the testing process. If you choose to continue to use these questions, we do provide a rubric not only to the student, but to the teacher as well. Here is a fill in the blank, multiple response. So I'm just kind of going through some of these questions. Some of them, here's another multiple response. Some of them look familiar. One thing you will see eventually is that we do also have a part A and B question. We know that we've got a lot of inquiries about multi-part questions, and those are included in here as well. One other thing to note is that students are going to get exposure to these technology enhanced items also embedded in our tutorials, as well as the mastery test, and we'll take a further look at that when we look at the prescription details. Just going to exit out of here. I'm going to open up one of our basic skill type tests, such as Algebra 1. Take a quick look at the format of these questions as well, because you will note that we do have a lot of technology enhanced items, not only in biology, but they're also embedded in all of our other types of tests. Hot text, fill in the blank. I think there's a Dropbox one here too. All right. So after a student is done completing our benchmark, the next thing you'll want to do as an educator is take a look at the results, see where their weaknesses are at, and then also what are they being prescribed in their prescription. So let's take a look at a sample student here. I'm going to go into my assignments. Now I just finished giving a student our Ohio end of course English 9. And so my student, I only have one student that needed to retake this, Emmerich Bauer. He has now completed the assignment, and he is 7% way through the prescription. And so I want to take a look at Emmerich's results. Now, before I click on Emmerich, you may have a list of students here. So we do make some quick reports available. We've got a view learners by module prescription. So basically, we outline the full prescription of what could be assigned to a student. And then for each module, you'll be able to click on the module name or title and see the list of students that were assigned that specific module. This is nice because there are some printable activities embedded in the tutorial, and this would give you an opportunity to maybe group those students together, allow them to work on that activity in a collaborative effort, or really be able to just group the students and maybe do some small group instruction to reinforce the skill that's being taught within their prescription. We also have learners by reporting and performance category. This allows us to outline what the reporting categories are, and then we will populate the students based off of their performance in that reporting category. Not only do we have that information available here in this quick reports, but we also have it available in our reports page, which is a report that's called our strengths and needs, and we'll take a further look at that later. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on Emmerich's name. From this page, I can scroll down and I can take a look at his results. Now, Emmerich received a 12 out of 48 points possible, which is a 25%. Now, the first thing I noticed is that Emmerich spent a whole 4 minutes and 14 seconds on an ELA test. So that tells me that he may not have really taken the time to read the passages and answer these questions correctly. So that's a conversation that I could have with Emmerich. Now, we also outline by question type here, so I can take a look at his performance on the different types of questions. I see he struggled with match pair as well as close question. And then you can also see that I had excluded the constructive responses out from his test. Here I can also view the categories and the weights on Emmerich's performance. Or I can actually go into his actual test and see how he responded to some of these questions. Now, I always like to highlight this as an option because this is a really great resource to, during this intervention time to sit down with a student. I could sit down with Emmerich, have him reread the passage, and then have a conversation about, what made you decide to answer the question this way? What was your thought process? Let's take the time and just kind of recap here. So you'll be able to any question that the student got wrong, you can bounce around, take a look at those questions. You have the answer key available as well as what it looks like unanswered, but really having that learner's response in front of you is helpful so that you can have that conversation with the student. Now I understand how Emmerich performed on the test, and now I want to take a deeper dive into his prescription details. Now, because Emmerich scored a 25%, his prescription is going to be lengthy in nature. You can see by this prescription, anything that contains the word view is going to be actual work for the student to work through. Now, everything else is just titles to those modules. And when I say modules, I say the titles to the tutorial and the mastery test within the prescription. And so right now, Emmerich's currently working on fiction, doing a closed reading. He received a 20 on the mastery test, so it's kicking him back through the tutorial again. But you as the educator will have some action items available. This is important because there may be times that you do need to lock some of this content so that students are not accessing things when they are, told to do certain modules. Maybe there's a teacher that wants them to align it to what they're doing in the classroom so they can lock everything else and only make what they think is appropriate at that time available. You can also exempt students out of any particular area of the prescription. This is important because, you may have the instructor have access to the results for the student here. I worked with Emmerich in the classroom on reading narratives and persuasive essays. He did a fantastic job. I am confident that he knows this and doesn't need to spend the time in his prescription to go over all of that again. So I may decide to exempt him. At any point, you can also hide content. This is important if you do have some students with lengthier prescriptions. We don't want them to become overwhelmed immediately. And so we may hide some areas and then slowly introduce things back as they get closer through what they have completed in their prescription. You at any point can also edit progress status. You may walk by, students are clicking through fast in their tutorial, really not engaging or reading any of the content. And so you may just take them a couple slides back and have them start in a certain area in their tutorial. You can also reset the activity if you feel it is necessary. And so I just want to take you into one of our tutorials so that you can see what students will have access to. So this is our tutorial fiction, doing a closed reading. The first thing you're going to notice is that we have some support tools here on the far left. We have a resource folder. This is an ELA tutorial. So we have excerpts and reading passages that we require the students to read. Instead of asking the student to find those passages within a book, within the library, we embed everything in the tutorial. And then if the student needs to reference back to those readings, they're available within the resource folder. We also have a dictionary. Students can cut and paste words, and we will define those for them. We have some reading tools. We have slide narration along with click to speak. The slide narration reads everything on each slide, whereas the click to speak will only read the content that the student clicks on. This is great so that if you do have some students that want to read majority of these slides, however, if they get stuck at any point and want maybe need to hear it out loud in order to comprehend it, we do have that click to speak option. And I'll show you that in just a minute. We do have a translation tool. We do cover quite a few languages. This is nice for our rural districts that may have some migrant students. And then lastly, we have a highlighter. Students at any point can highlight areas of the content that's important to them. It is automatically saved. And then we do follow the colors, the dyslexia color requirements as well. Now, because we are on the teacher side, the one other support tool that is not here but will be accessible to students is a notebook. So at any point, they will be able to take notes. It'll automatically be saved on the student side, and they can print those off at any moment in time and have that as a study guide prior to the end of course retake date. So I'm just going to start off and kind of click through so you can see how this looks. We're going to outline the tutorial. We are always going to ensure that we have an objective for this lesson so that the student knows what they're going to be taught. We have a video. All of our videos are short in nature. We do not want to lose the student at any point. We want them to continue to be engaged. And then we're going to start with some reading here. So I just kind of want to show you an example of how this support tool works. It'll be reading this in my headset, but you will easily see that when it does read it in my headset out loud, that it will highlight the word as it reads it out loud. And then students will have the ability to select Tom or Ava.
After you read a story or a novel, it's usually easy to say whether you like it and why. But what if someone asks you about...
So that is easy for students to follow along if they choose to do so. I'm going to keep clicking through here. And you'll see that we don't include a lot of content on each slide. We don't want the students to become overwhelmed with the amount of reading. We want them to continue to be engaged. And in order to do that, we do embed a lot of lesson activities. Now here's an example of a printable lesson activity. We want students to really reflect on what they're learning and how it relates to real world situations. And then we also want them to really self-evaluate their work. We do require students to put some type of response in and submit it before moving forward in the tutorial. Now you will see that we have some words highlighted here. These are important words that we want the students to ensure that they understand and related to the passage that they're reading. So we do make that connection for them. I'm just going to continue to click through. As you can see, we have another short video here, followed by some more reading. Here is an example of our interactive timeline. So you can see the students are going to be required to do a lot of clicking here, and this helps them to stay engaged. So I'm going to exit out of here and then show you a quick preview here of our mastery test. Now, when you go to assign a test, you will have the ability to adjust the attempts on the mastery test. Majority of the teachers that I work with will select about somewhere between 3 to 4. That gives the students about 3 to 4 attempts at the mastery test before it locks the test and requires the students to go back through the tutorial. Once the students go back through the tutorial, it will unlock the mastery test and allow them to attempt at it again. Mastery is 80%. So I'm just quickly view. One thing I wanted to show you here is that we do have, once again, those technology enhanced item types. So I'm just going to quickly exit out of here. Now, once your students have completed the test, more likely than not, you're going to have more than one student assigned a test. So you want to be able to have access to a wide variety of different types of reports. And so I'm just going to shift over here to our Reports tab. From the Reports tab, you will have the ability to take a look at the student's strengths and needs. This strengths and needs report really outlines where the student is at against the standards. One thing to keep in mind is that you do have the ability to set the amount of categories here and the percentages within to align to what you feel is appropriate. Here is an example of a single learner strengths and needs report. John performed at a 49%, which is partially meeting learning standards. And then we outlined the summary of his categories. So here are the categories he's really strong in, and then here are the areas of concern. We also provide a category breakdown. This is really nice when you have a lot of students that you want to plot on this report, because we will outline what the reporting category is, and I'll know who my students are that are strong in that category, and I'll know who my students are that are not meeting that learning standard. And so if I do want to pull that small group offline, we can do some small group instruction then. We also have some other assessment reports. Here is a preview. Here is a preview of our assessment test by series. We outline the reporting categories, how they performed on test 1, test 2, and if you do give test 3 at any point. This is a great way to view the growth as well as any potential spiraling. We have a learner's daily usage. It outlines what students have been working on in which area of the prescription or of the test, and how much time on task. We have a learner's progress report. You can do a progress report on the student's performance on the test or how they're progressing through the learning path. Getting a progress report on how they're progressing through the learning path is really nice, especially if you have parents asking, well, what are you doing for my students to ensure that they pass the end of course? You can easily access this report and show them what the student has been currently working on. So I'm just gonna, for an example, I'd like to just kind of show you what's included in this report, because I feel like it's important for you to see the detail that we have available if necessary. So we were just in Emmerich's prescription, so I'm going to pull a report for Emmerich, and I'm going to generate that report. So it's going to take just a few minutes here to pull up the report, but the goal here would be ideally to show you what kind of details are included in Emmerich's report, so that if you do ever have parents that come to you asking for some details very similar to that, you will have the ability to access it. Now it's taking its real time, so I just want to be mindful of your time here. So I'm just going to go back and show you the other reports, and we'll jump into that learner's progress report towards the end here. Now we also have the assessment item response. This is a great report. It does provide you with the question, what the item type was, and the reporting category we were covering, the standard, the percentage of learners scoring 70 or more, or the percentage of learners not answering. So we've got our 2 students here, and then we identify which questions were more difficult for your students. So if you wanted to address those as a group whole, you can certainly do that with this report. So great piece of detailed information right at your fingertips. Now I'm going to sign out real quick, and I'm going to just show you the student side so that you can see the ease of use for your students, because it'll be important for your students to know that it is easy to use and they're comfortable with using it, so that the data that you get in return is going to be accurate. So I'm going to sign out here. We're going to take a look at Emmerich's test results. So we're logging in as Emmerich. Here he has all of his active assignments. So here is where it's going to be the title of the test that you just prescribed to your student. They will be able to simply just click on select new activity and it'll start the test for them. We also can take a look at all my work. Students can see if they do have any prescriptions, how they're progressing through those prescriptions. So I'm 7% way through. This is the start date. This is the last time I accessed it, my time on task, and who my instructor is. But here, as a learner, I'm also going to have the ability to access that learner's progress report. So this is the report that we were trying to pull up here. Now, this is the report that you can provide the parents so that they have a detailed understanding of where their students are at, what they're learning, and how much time they're spending, any potential scores on mastery tests, and then what they have to really get through as well. So this is a great report, not only for the students to see their progress in their learning, but also to share with the parents. We do have a message system, so if students ever have questions, they can message you and you will receive that in your inbox as the administrator. Here is that notebook feature that we talked a little bit about. At any point, students can come in, they can access their notes and they can print those. And then we have a collaboration space that's technically a virtual whiteboard where teachers and students can chat back and forth virtually, post videos, PDF files, just where they can spread any additional reinforcement of the skill that the student's working on. And so this was just a quick overview of the Edmentum assessment platform. Certainly reach out at any point if you do have some follow-up questions. My goal today is so that you feel comfortable knowing what is available if you do have a need within your building. And I look forward to answering any additional questions that you have in the future. Thank you so much for your time today.